On a warm summer night in 2022, Mya Fuller's life changed forever. What began as an ordinary night out would become the beginning of a heartbreaking investigation that would leave her family searching for answers and law enforcement working to uncover the truth behind her disappearance. Mya Fuller was a young woman with a future ahead of her. To the people who knew her, she was more than just a name connected to a criminal case. She was a daughter, a friend, and someone whose life mattered deeply to those around her. But in July 2022, Mya suddenly disappeared. At first, her disappearance brought uncertainty and fear. Like many families facing a missing loved one, those close to Mya hoped that she would be found safe. They waited for a phone call, a message, or any sign that could explain where she was and what had happened. However, as hours turned into days and days turned into weeks, investigators began uncovering details that suggested Mya's disappearance was not a simple case of someone losing contact. The search for answers would eventually reveal a disturbing series of events involving people Mya had reportedly known for only a short period of time. This is the story of Mya Fuller, her disappearance, the investigation that followed, the evidence made public, the arrests that shocked those following the case, and the ongoing pursuit of justice. Before her disappearance, Mya Fuller was living her life like many young adults. She had family members and friends who cared about her, and who never expected that a normal day would become the beginning of a tragedy. When someone disappears unexpectedly, investigators immediately begin trying to reconstruct their final moments. Every conversation, every location, every person they interacted with, and every decision they made before vanishing can become an important piece of evidence. Authorities needed to answer several critical questions. Where was Mya last seen? Who was with her? What happened during the final hours before she disappeared? And most importantly, was someone responsible? In July 2022, Mya was in the Nashville, Tennessee area. Investigators later revealed that she had attended an event at Geodis Park and was later connected to the Island Vibes nightclub area. At some point that night, communication with Mya stopped. When family and friends realized they could no longer reach her, concern quickly grew. A person suddenly becoming unreachable can happen for many reasons, but when the disappearance is completely unexpected, loved ones often recognize that something is wrong. A missing person investigation begins with uncertainty. Police must consider every possibility. They must determine whether the person left voluntarily, whether an accident occurred, or whether they may have become the victim of a crime. Investigators began gathering information about Mya's final known movements. They examined available evidence, spoke with people connected to her, and worked to create a timeline of what happened before she disappeared. The first priority was finding Mya. But as the investigation continued, authorities began uncovering information that suggested the situation was much more serious. The search eventually led investigators to Wilson County, Tennessee. In August 2022, human remains were discovered in a wooded area. Authorities later confirmed that the remains belonged to Mya Fuller. For her family, the discovery brought devastating confirmation. The hope that Mya would return home safely was replaced with the painful reality that she had become the victim of a homicide. The investigation changed direction immediately. Authorities were no longer searching for a missing woman. They were now searching for answers about who had taken Mya's life and why. Investigators from multiple agencies worked to piece together the events leading up to her death. They examined evidence, reviewed information gathered during the missing person investigation, and focused on identifying the individuals connected to Mya's final hours. As authorities continued their work, they discovered that the people believed to be involved had reportedly only known Mya for a short period of time. Investigators stated that some of the individuals connected to the case had known Mya for approximately 24 hours before the events that led to her death. This detail made the case even more disturbing because it raised questions about how a brief interaction could lead to such a tragic outcome. In July 2023, nearly a year after Mya's disappearance, authorities announced arrests in connection with her death. The individuals arrested included Tiana Tipton, Tyshawn Bowles, and Lamira Pipkins. Authorities accused them of involvement in Mya's death. However, as with all criminal cases, accusations are not convictions, and every defendant is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. The arrests represented a major development in the investigation. After months of uncertainty, investigators had identified people they believed were connected to what happened. After the arrests connected to Mya Fuller's death, the investigation entered a new and critical stage. For law enforcement, the focus shifted from simply discovering what happened to building a complete picture of the events that led to Mya's disappearance and death. For Mya's family, however, the arrests could never erase the pain of losing someone they loved. While identifying individuals connected to the case brought some answers, it also marked the beginning of another difficult chapter, waiting for the justice system to determine what happened and who should be held responsible. The investigation into Mya Fuller's death involved multiple law enforcement agencies working together to examine evidence, interview individuals connected to the case, and reconstruct the timeline of her final hours. In homicide investigations, one of the most important tasks is rebuilding the sequence of events. Investigators must determine where the victim was, who they were with, what happened before the crime occurred, and what actions were taken afterward. Every detail can become significant. A single message, a witness statement, a surveillance image, or a small piece of physical evidence can help investigators connect events that initially appear unrelated. In Mya's case, authorities worked to understand how a young woman who had gone out during an ordinary summer evening ended up becoming the victim of a deadly crime. One of the details that gained attention during the investigation was the reported relationship between Mya and the people accused in connection with her death. Investigators stated that some of those involved had only known Mya for a short period of time, reportedly around 24 hours before the events that led to her death. This detail made the case even more difficult for many people to understand. Many violent crimes develop from long-standing conflicts, personal disagreements, or relationships that have deteriorated over time. However, Mya's case raised questions about how such a tragic outcome could happen between people who had only recently crossed paths. Investigators continued examining the movements of those connected to the case after Mya disappeared. They reviewed information collected during the investigation, including witness accounts, communication records, and other evidence that could help explain what happened. Although authorities did not release every piece of evidence publicly, they indicated that the investigation uncovered information that helped them identify individuals they believed were responsible. In criminal investigations, a case is rarely built around only one piece of evidence. Instead, investigators often rely on multiple sources of information that together create a clearer picture. These may include statements from witnesses, digital evidence, surveillance footage, forensic findings, and information obtained during interviews. Each piece must be carefully examined and connected to establish what occurred. For almost a year, Mya's family waited for answers. They continued hoping that investigators would uncover the truth behind her disappearance and bring those responsible to justice. When authorities announced arrests in July 2023, it represented a major development in the case. The individuals arrested included Tiana Tipton, Tyshawn Bowles, and Lamira Pipkins. Authorities accused them of involvement in Mya Fuller's death. However, accusations made during an arrest are not the same as a conviction. Under the legal system, every person accused of a crime is considered innocent unless proven guilty in court. The arrests brought renewed attention to Mya's story. People following the case wanted to understand what happened during those final moments, and what evidence led investigators to identify the accused individuals. For the community, Mya's case became another reminder of how quickly a person's life can change, and why missing person cases require immediate attention. Behind every missing person investigation is a family waiting, hoping, and searching for answers. For Mya's loved ones, this case was never only about solving a crime. It was about remembering Mya as a person, not only as the subject of a tragic investigation. As the case moved through the legal system, prosecutors began preparing their arguments while defense attorneys reviewed the accusations and evidence. The courtroom became the next stage in the search for truth. The legal process in a homicide case can be lengthy. Prosecutors must prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, while defendants have the right to defend themselves and challenge the evidence presented against them. Some criminal cases are resolved through trials, while others may involve plea agreements. A plea agreement allows a defendant to accept responsibility for certain charges in exchange for an agreed outcome. The outcome of each case depends on the evidence available and the decisions made by those involved in the legal process. For Mya's family, no courtroom decision could bring back the person they lost. Justice may provide accountability, but it cannot remove the grief caused by losing someone unexpectedly. Even after arrests and court developments, many questions remain in cases like Mya Fuller's. People continue to ask what exactly happened during her final moments, what motivated the crime, and whether there were warning signs that could have changed the outcome. These questions are common among families who lose loved ones through violence. They often search for explanations, trying to understand how something so devastating could happen. For investigators, the responsibility remains focused on evidence and facts. For Mya's family, the focus remains on honoring her memory and ensuring that she is not forgotten. The disappearance of Mya Fuller began as a search for a missing young woman. It later became a homicide investigation that exposed a heartbreaking series of events and led to multiple arrests. Her story is a reminder that behind every headline is a real person with dreams, relationships, and people who cared about them. Mya Fuller was not only a victim in a criminal case. She was a daughter, a friend, and a person whose life had value. While the legal process continues to determine accountability, her story remains a reminder of the importance of seeking truth, supporting victims' families, and remembering those whose lives were taken too soon.